Hi, everyone. This is Phil Travis, and this announcement is for History 458 here at EOU. It is week 4. This week we are reading from our McPherson book, chapter 7 and 8. We also have a quiz from our reading this week. The quiz is also drawn from chapter 7 and 8, just like previous quizzes. We have our discussion forum as always. I also have a very short reading I want you to read. It comes from the historian David Blight. David Blight is a very significant American historian who deals with these topics that we are dealing with in the class. And it's a short. It was a piece he wrote for the Washington Post several years ago. And the reason that I'm having you read this piece by David Blight is because most everybody, and again, I might have missed one or two, but it sounded like pretty much everybody was like Civil War is or was inevitable. And so I want you to read David Blight's little article on that topic, on inevitability in the American Civil War. Because in a way he agrees with you. He believes it was inevitable, but he doesn't believe it was like universally inevitable. He doesn't believe that since the founding of the country it was inevitable. He doesn't believe it was inevitable since the Missouri Compromise or even the Compromise of 1850. He tends to believe that it becomes more inevitable in the late 1850s, particularly following 1857. Blight also offers a very short little explanation on the historiography of the American Civil War. It's very short, but I think it's also very pertinent to discussions that we're having about slavery and states' rights and these types of things. So please read the David Blight it's a really short little essay that he wrote for the Washington Post. Read that and include that in the discussion forum this week. So we're reading McPherson 7 and 8. We have a quiz on it. We also have our David Blight essay as well. Let's see. So next week we have a paper proposal due. So don't forget we have a major research paper that we're writing in this class. The first step to writing this is the paper proposal, in which you will propose the topic. You will identify the topic. You will provide a thesis statement. You will also provide a couple of leading questions that you can answer in the paper, that you will answer in the paper. And I also want you to basically write the introduction of your paper, so you take a step towards the completion of your paper. An introduction for a paper like this should really be a two-part introduction. With an introduction, first paragraph that is kind of a narrative hook that draws the reader in. A sort of first-hand account is usually a very efficient way to write, or an effective way to write a narrative hook. So if you're writing about Gettysburg, a great narrative hook might be the visual of what you imagine soldiers might have experienced that were involved in, say, Pickett's charge. But so the introduction should include a narrative hook, and then a paragraph that really lays out the argument, establishes some of those important questions, explain what the argument is, how the paper is going to make the argument, and so forth. So that'll be due next week, week 5, but I want you to really be thinking about it this week. So I've put the paper proposal template in the modules for this week. So take a look at it, be thinking about your paper. You also should be digging up some sources. Use our library, even if you're not on site. Our library has pretty good databases that you can access to find journal articles or books that can be located online, or books that you can have summit orders on. You can go pick them up at a university library that's close to you potentially. So be thinking about that, because I also expect to see 5 academic sources included in the paper proposal. All right, so quiz this week, McPherson chapter 7 and 8, Blight reading discussion forum. Be thinking about the paper proposal for next week. Here's your factoid. The factoid is this. The Civil War, in a lot of respects, even though you might not immediately think about it like this, the Civil War is really, in a lot of ways, kind of technologically on the cutting edge in this for the time period, and this is a big reason why, of course, you you have such high, casualties from the conflict. The widespread use of rifles by all infantrymen, for example, as opposed to just sharpshooters. Um, the development of artillery during the Civil War. Artillery was advanced greatly during the Civil War, and in certain battlefields of the Civil War, it is almost kind of like what you might imagine during World War One. The usage of explosive shells during the Civil War, the development of submarines during the Civil War, like the CSS Hundley, of course, which you can visit in the greater Charleston, South Carolina area. It's been brought up from the bottom from its being sunk. The development of so-called Ironsides, vessels that are a kind of a precursor to the heavily armored warships of the future. Steam-powered vessels. And another one that's kind of interesting that a lot of folks don't think about is actually the usage of airborne technology in war. Now, there were no airplanes during the Civil War, of course. However, there was, for the U.S. Army, a balloon corps, and the balloon corps used air balloons to go up into the air and to basically be used for reconnaissance and to also survey the land to create maps and geography. So one of the sort of innovative techniques of war during the Civil War was actually the usage of air balloons and the so-called balloon corps, the first balloon corps in the U.S. Army, which was used to provide reconnaissance for the Union Army, as well as to survey the geography of the countryside to provide for map making and greater understanding of the battle. So the U.S. Army's first balloon corps is the factoid for this week. And oh, by the way, these can be very subject to weather, of course. If a huge thunderstorm came along, it could really create problems for the balloon corps. But that's the factoid for this week, the balloon corps. Send me that email no later than Wednesday by midnight. Get your bonus point towards one of your tests at the end of the term, and let's have a great week. Please let me know if you have any questions. Things are looking great, by the way, in discussion forum and everything. We're doing great. So keep it up, and let's have a great week.